All right, so the Speaker, you saw the press release that we put out, the Speaker and I, after sort of taking a chance to look at the different proposals that put out there to date and sort of adjusting to the reality on the ground. I think we said it pretty well. There's not going to be the support in the General Assembly to toll motor vehicles or pedestrian, passenger cars. There hasn't been support for that for about 8 or 9 years now. It hasn't received the support of one chamber, and we have to fix our transportation system. I give a ton of credit to Senator Fasano for putting out a plan, the same way we've credited and praised Governor Lamont previously for his plan. When you have options from which to negotiate, that's how you can get a deal done. So now we have the governor's original proposal and the work that he's done. We have Senator Fasano's. The Speaker and I have put our alternative out there. And I think we have hopefully the beginnings of a compromise that we can vote and pass to shore up our transportation fund and make the investments we need to make in the state.
We believe that you were supposed to all be getting together tomorrow. Is that correct?
I don't believe we're getting together tomorrow. Schedules can change, but I think the hope is we get together in the next few days. Yeah.
And how did you inform the governor of this? I mean, did you call and tell him, have a conversation?
The Speaker's office, the Speaker's chief of staff reached out to them and let them know, and I think the Speaker may have reached out as well, and that's par for the course. The Speaker will talk for our caucus.
We then sent a letter.
And a letter over there, too, that we signed. And look, at the end of the day, and this might be the next question, is, well, why the change? Why can you do this now? What has changed legally? Nothing's ever changed legally, okay? You got to go back to November of 2018. The governor gets elected, and the original plan was to just do truck tolling, okay? The problem is, it did not raise the revenue to do what was needed to shore up the STF and do all the projects that were needed to be done. In large part because of borrowing costs were much higher under the state plan as opposed to using federal loans at a lower rate. But there was a lot of reasons why it didn't add up. The second reason is the original tolling plan was on interstate highways. The feds have been very, very clear. You could not toll trucks only on our interstate highway system, like you couldn't do out-of-state drivers. There is an exception, in which Rhode Island does and other states do, which is just bridges. So when the governor scaled back his proposal to just bridges, and we're able to identify those 14, now 12, because two bridges get removed from our plan, that's where we think legally we're on firm footing to go forward with this.
There are some states that are grandfathered into that, because I went to Rhode Island with that whole, it's complicated with the trucks and toll, but what concerns do you have legally? I mean, Rhode Island still is in that battle for that, and the tolls in Rhode Island are not temporary, they are permanent.
Yeah, I think our proposal is to toll trucks and to toll them permanently, so even when the federal loans are paid off. Everywhere on the eastern seaboard, trucks drive for free. And that's been our whole argument for a long time, is maximizing out-of-state revenue and capturing the revenue that other states enjoy. They do 80% of the damage. That's the reality. Trucks do 80% of the damage, and they pay nothing in Connecticut. That has to change.
It says it only raises $150 million.
Well, go ahead.
I mean, they pay through other means.
Yeah, but they don't pay nearly what they pay in New York, New Jersey, and Rhode Island through those other means in Connecticut.
What about that? This whole, as you mentioned, there's been so much. I mean, we went from trucks only, then we went up 80 gantries, 40. That the public is, feels you're kind of grasping at straws, and this may hurt your momentum.
Mm-hmm. I think that you could take the position that shifting plans and proposals shows that government is not able to find a solution, right? And is, to your point, is just kind of throwing what's out there. I take a different perspective. When government listens and responds, and you kind of understand where votes are and proposals are, that's what you expect from elected officials. So I think people have taken a lot of feedback, a heck of a lot of heat, a lot of criticism for different plans, put them out there, and now we're trying to weave something together. I don't think responding to concerns and changing plans is a sign of weakness. I think it's a sign of strength.
You guys call this a leadership plan. Where do your 91 members stand on this plan? Did you take a head count?
I'll just tell you that we've caucused this issue many times, not just this year, but over the last 7 or 8 years. The concept of tolling only trucks has never received the level of pushback that we've received with passenger cars. And I think number two, it was something that came up during the 2018 election, and you can't discount that. This was what was said would be done, and Governor Lamont won that election. So that, to me, is the ultimate poll. And he won the election, maybe not solely on that issue, but it was a focal point of that issue.
So as you sit here today, you do not know if you have 76, 26, 56 votes in your
Well,
caucus.
you know why I don't know that? Because we're not done, right? This is our proposal. We've acknowledged that Senator Fasano has a plan out there that we're intrigued by, maybe not to the tune of $1.6 billion, maybe not the acceleration of transferring money from the budget reserve fund to the state employee retirement fund, but maybe some compromise there with him on that. That's something else we have to talk to our members about. There was some concern about $1.6 billion. If we walked it back to a lower number, we're waiting for other plans. I'm told the House Republicans may have a plan. We want to see what they have. So I guess I would say I can't tell you votes because I think there's more to come, and then the governor has a role to play in all this. But generally speaking, if you ask the public, if you ask our caucus, would doing trucks only on 10, 12 bridges be preferable to the current plans out there? I think the answer is yes.
Your plan only raises 150 million.
Just a second.
Those are all approximate numbers, to be fair. DOT gave us kind of a back-of-the-napkin run if you did rates like New York, Rhode Island.
What the governor said he needed.
That's right, but it's more than Senator Fasano's plan delivered as well. So it's in the middle.
Something for me?
Yeah.
I've just been trying to figure out, it may be a moot point, but regardless, you said that the tolling of cars couldn't pass the legislature. But we heard opinions earlier this year, including from Speaker Arasimowicz, that he thought the tolling of cars could fly with the House Democratic caucus. Do you think, even if it's not going to happen this year, the tolling of cars still could pass your caucus?
I think the issue of tolling of cars, based upon the totality of the last 6 months, could not pass the General Assembly.
Now, I respect that. I hear that, but that's
Yeah.
not my question. Do you have any opinion on whether or not it could pass with House Democrats?
I think the last few months has made me think that we may have lost a few people on certain plans, yeah.
Just as a quick follow, one of the things that I've been hearing from some of your caucus members is that when they started to look at the totality of tolls with some of the tax increases that are aimed at the poor and the middle class, the prepared meals tax, the broadening of the sales tax, even things like plastic bags, that's obviously a lesser one, the fact that the property tax credit was not bolstered in this budget. They're saying, taken all totaled, that could have a deeper hit. Somebody actually did the math, and you could wipe out, for some people, their entire earned income tax credit if they hit 2 tolling gantries every day and paid these other taxes. Do you think that the regressive nature of tolls was starting to erode some support?
There's no question that we had no's in our moderate caucus and our progressive caucus, yes.
So you're not concerned about any legal action?
Well, we pass laws all the time, and there's sometimes...
The governor was very concerned about that.
He was, and they do get, I think he was more worried about it when the revenue might have been more substantial, but I'll let him speak for himself. And maybe there's been more guidance in the last year from Rhode Island's case. We pass laws. We pass laws that are controversial, and people challenge them in court sometimes. And I think we have to use the best legal guidance we can get from the Attorney General's office, from our staff attorneys up here, and look at Rhode Island's case. But at the end of the day, it comes down to this. The argument would be that we're discriminating against truckers, right? That by only tolling them, it's a classic form of discrimination, and they're going to sue under the Equal Protection Clause. They're not a protected class, right? A truck is not a protected class of persons or citizens. The standard is a rational basis. It's the lowest standard on that threshold that you would have for equal protection. Our argument is they do 80% of the damages, and it's probably worse on bridges because of the weight that they bring over those bridges. To us, that's a rational argument for asking them to pay a fee versus passenger cars.
And it was my understanding that the tolls, the way that the governor had proposed them recently with the 14, would have brought in like $350 million.
Yep.
This, I would imagine, would not be as much, or is...
Yeah, look at Rhode Island, New York, New Jersey, give us a quick turnaround from DOT. It depends on what you do. It depends on the rates that you charge. But if they were somewhat equal, we were told that somewhere between, could be 100, 125, 150. It's around that number. I would say it's about 40% at the end of the day, 45% of what you might bring in from passenger cars. Remember this too, that we did certain things for passenger cars to try to, or the governor's plan did to make it more appealing. Those things would be gone, so you would have a different pricing mechanism for trucks only.
As part of this, what did you get from the governor, or what are you asking from the governor for this?
The governor is asking for anybody who's in a position of leadership, I think, to be a part of the conversation. We all agree it's a problem, and the governor spent an entire summer and an entire fall pointing out that problem and coming up with a new plan, looking to federal government for help and assistance. I think he's appreciative of our proposal because it's a proposal. It means that we're engaged. It means we're not walking away. We're still considering aspects of Senator Fasano's plan, maybe in a different way, but understand what he's trying to do and accomplish. So I think that's his perspective, having talked to him about this briefly, is You're in the game and you're a part of it. If you come to a table and you just say no and you have no plan, that's really hard with which to negotiate. And I think it is a responsibility of every leader in this building, of the cognizant committees, to have something to solve our transportation problem. And I said this in the press release too, and this is what really, really eats at me. The following quote: "I am not against truck-only tolling, but it is the camel's nose under the tent." I don't know how anyone got through high school or college in a government class. They couldn't with that as their answer. Stop talking about camels and their noses. This is a truck-only tolling proposal. Do you support it, yes or no? No is the answer. For some, it's a slippery slope. That's not answering the question. What on its face of this plan do you agree with or you disagree with? The question of a future legislature could vote to do something. A legislature can do whatever it wants. The future is not guaranteed to any law, nor to any of us. So if anyone says to you, slippery slope or camel's nose, I really hope you'll say that is not a plan, that's not an answer. A future legislature could do anything they want. This plan is on trucks only. And by the way, the Speaker and I have also asked our lawyers to research how, if we did trucks only and tied that in to the federal loans, that could be binding, thereby eliminating the ability for us to add motor vehicle passenger cars to those 12 bridges.
You said earlier that it would be permanent.
For trucks. That's our thought, yes.
Permanent for trucks.
Yep.
Well, I'm sorry, but, the camel's nose notwithstanding, and with all due respect,
Yeah.
you can tell us what to do all you want, but that's what we hear from people. They know that once the gantries go up, that there would be nothing to keep future legislatures and governors from making it for all vehicles.
But why can't we
They
can do
know
that
it.
now?
What's that?
We can do it now. You can't just flip a switch. It would take a vote of a General Assembly to do it. We haven't had a vote of a General Assembly in 9 years and one chamber on it. But the argument, see, there's a different argument. If the argument is you can flip a switch at DOT and turn it on for cars, then the camel's nose carries water. You can't. You have to go back to the Connecticut General Assembly and convince a House and a Senate and a governor to change the plan to include cars.
As long as that's what this legislation says. If it puts it in the hands of the DOT or some
Fair point.
transportation
Fair point.
strategy board,
Yep. Well, I won't vote for any package that does that. How about that? We decide, and we're deciding trucks only, and we're going to try to lock that in with the federal government. And if someone 9 years from now or 25 years from now wants to go back to passenger cars because they're not as bloodied and bruised as the rest of us are, good luck.
Does this generate enough money? I'm not clear on that. In other words, under Lamont's plan, we were talking about, in round numbers, $320 a year
Yeah.
on tolls. This, you're talking $150.
Yeah.
Where is the other money coming from?
Well, don't forget, we still are waiting for other plans from other caucuses, which may help us get there. We have Senator Fasano's plan, which brought in 130. Even if you took a portion of that, if you didn't do 1.6 or some other number, you might find some savings there. You're not going to get to 320. That's probably true. That would cause Connecticut 2030 to either have to remove certain projects or to do a reamortization of the loan schedule so that it's longer, so that the annual amount is less, although you're paying more over time. But my guess is you will not be able to do exactly what 2030 says.
And the governor is not throwing in any money on this? I just want to be clear on that.
Well, we haven't had that negotiation yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
At all. Okay.
No.
Why only 12 bridges? There's plenty more bridges that need to be repaired.
It's
There's 21 bridges right behind this building.
It's a very good question. The Speaker and I feel like the Senate Republican plan used this as a blueprint, the 14 roads of where those projects were basically going to go. And so we wanted to try to be as much in alignment with the governor and the Senate Republicans on that. And I think that's why we chose that number in those bridges. But
So that could move too.
sure, any legislature can do whatever they want, I suppose. But I think right now we're focused on those 12. Yeah.
And there's no appetite now for both.
For motor vehicles?
And trucks.
Both?
Yeah.
No, our plan is truck only. Our plan is to make it very clear that's not just for 1 year or 2 years. That's what we think is the best way going forward to pay for our transportation.
What criteria did you use to scale back from 14 bridges to 12?
Route 9 doesn't have a lot of trucks because of the way you get off the exit and you have to stop. Trucks try to avoid Route 9, so there's just not a lot there.
Parkway has no trucks.
And the Parkway has no trucks, so that's why, yeah.
Back to Paul's question, I just wasn't completely clear. You are very confident that the House Dems are on board with this plan. I just wanted to be clear on that. I don't think you'd be sitting here if you weren't. Correct?
Well,
Am I
there's
missing
still no
something?
plan. There's a House Democrat counterproposal that's going to get negotiated with all the caucuses. So there will be a final product to be reviewed. But to answer the more narrow question that you guys are asking, is our caucus more willing to approve a plan that is truck only versus previous plans that involved passenger cars? The overwhelming answer is yes.
Do you still have, well, is it a goal to reach an agreement, a partisan or bipartisan agreement that you can pass and get it done before the 2020 session? Or is this something that you expect will carry into next year's legislative session?
So normally, I try to say that the sense of urgency we shouldn't put a rush job ahead of getting it right. But the speaker and I were talking about this yesterday, and Joe made a really, really, really good point. The federal rate can move away from us. Right now, it's at historic lows. And if you've seen the stock market and the way it's going, interest rates are actually rising on municipal bonds. So we're a little worried about that. So time is of the essence. We don't want to rush it. But the longer we wait, the more likely it is we lose that interest rate. It could go from 1.7 to 1.9 to 2 to 2.1, and that adds more money. So to answer your question, Paul, I think we'd like to get it done in a bipartisan way as soon as possible. We've expressed a willingness to work with Senator Fasano on aspects of his plan. And all I could think of is someone standing up and talking about a camel's nose as the reason they're against it. That's the only reason they've said.
Actually, it was a Trojan horse this time.
Trojan horse.
Trojan horse.
I don't want to hear a horse's nose either.
There's no aversion with you and the speaker to using some of the RDF?
The RDF, the Rainy Day Fund. Sorry, Budget Reserve Fund, RDF. In 2021, OFA has projected that if all things hold, which is an interesting thing in this environment, we would be transferring about $400 to $500 million, maybe $300 million on the low end, into the State Employee Retirement Fund anyway, by law, because the Rainy Day Fund would be filled up to its maximum amount permitted by the general statutes. Senator Fasano does two things in his plan. He expedites that transfer, and he also increases the par amount of that transfer. We've already said we think 1.6 is too high. Would we be willing to talk about expediting a smaller transfer ahead of 2021, or having some sort of trigger points in place so that we know we're doing the fiscally responsible thing? I think that's a conversation we want to have with them.
Can I just push back on one thing? It's a small distinction. If you go off OFA's numbers, you will get to the max, not go sailing over at 300 million. You will get to the max at the end of FY21. So, I mean, you might have 10 million if you look at their numbers. You have to go a little over $3 billion to get to the 15%.
Yep.
But yes, we're still, percentage-wise, we're over 13%. It's a record-setting reserve. Right now, just personally, how much of a comfort level do you have drawing that number down somewhat?
Yeah.
Have you thought it in terms of numbers? $500 million? I mean, how much would you comfortably be willing to draw off?
I think we want to talk to folks, but to put in perspective, if we go into a recession, we'd like to be somewhere between we'd like to be around $2.5 billion. That is in excess of 10% of our annual budget. That's what that's what Wall Street wants you to have, and that's more than 10%. So $2 billion is about 10%. We think we'd like to be closer to 2.5.
We're at 2.5 now, and the projection is if the numbers hold by the end of next summer, you're at 2.7 to 2.8. That says you have 200 to 300 million
Maybe.
you could bleed off if the numbers hold.
Maybe. And then if you look at 21, they'd have you right around 3.1, right? So that gives you potentially more revenue.
Assuming you never bled anything off this coming summer.
That's right.
Senator Fasano just said here in an email a lot of unanswered questions about this.
Okay.
I think, say again?
Okay.
And that I think you said yourself it was not really a plan, it's more of a concept or a proposal, is that right?
Ours is a proposal.
Yeah. He asked you about 5 things here. No explanation how the...
No, 5, Chris, make it 4. We got a deadline.
No numbers, no explanation how the STF will be made solvent, no explanation of construction costs, no indications if it's gross or net, no explanation of how this will cover the costs of needed the transportation improvements.
Okay. Well, we will certainly have a chance to get Senator Fasano all those numbers, but I think in answering the questions today, and we obviously don't always watch each other's press conferences, I think I've given enough from how the speaker and I and our staffs have crafted this to answer a lot of those questions.
You have to get back to work.
Okay. It's,
Just
yeah.
to clarify, so the amount that the trucks would bring in would be less than the 350, say close to 200 million?
No, our approximate numbers we got, again, it depends on the rates you have. We got anywhere from 100 to 150 or somewhere around there. It's a big number, I understand that, because it all depends on what you vote on.
And the rest of the money would come from maybe some of the rainy day fund? You're not upset?
We would never take rainy day fund and spend cash, I don't think. I think
Okay.
we would prepay long-term liabilities to drive the ARC down, which is what Senator Fasano did. And I know that seems like the same thing, but it's a little different.
You'd have to find that 150 million or whatever.
We may not be able to fill the cup entirely. We
Okay.
readily acknowledge that.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you
Thanks,
for your
guys.
time.
Yeah, thank you.
Go back to work.